This podcast is a proud member of the Unidentified Network.
On the Track is a web TV show about cryptozoology, natural history, green issues and whatever else the team feel like making up as they go along. Enjoy!
So what have we got exciting that's coming up in this episode, Mr. John? Well, Hennis, in this episode we're going to California with our old friend Jackie Tonks. Enjoy. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Downs and I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and this little lady here is my pussycat, Lilith. And we would like to welcome you to another... Hang on, what's over there? We seem to have been transported into the middle of Warwickshire.
Nuneaton, the jewel of the South Midlands, the town who gave us such great men as George Eliot and Larry Grayson, the throbbing heart of this teeming metropolis, the pearl of the CV13 postcode, down by the roundabout and up the one-way system, is Nuneaton Town Hall, where we can find none other than Nuneaton's Mr. Entertainment.
Hello ladies and gentlemen and boys and girls, I'm Barry Tadcaster and this is my friend Ken Jeffens, who is an Orang Pendek. Hello, my name is Ken Jeffens and I am an Orang Pendek. Unlike the other Orang Pendeks, I do not come from the Indonesian island of Sumatra. I come from the London borough of Lewisham, where I am employed by Lewisham Town Council as an ombudsman.
So Ken, what's happening on today's show? Oh Barry, on today's show we are going to go to a haunted house, and it is haunted by the ghost of a grandfather clock that trundles round the garden like an anorexic Dalek.
Well, I don't think there's much you can say to that, ladies and gentlemen. So let's start again. My name's John Downs, I'm the director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and this is Lilith, who is my personal favourite of the Centre for Fortean Zoology cats, but don't tell her big brother. Lilith and I would like to welcome you to another episode of On the Track. For those of you who don't know, it is a bi-weekly web TV show which comes out on YouTube, on our particular YouTube channel, every Wednesday at 6:30 for about a quarter of an hour, although recent episodes have been far longer than that, and on Saturday afternoons for about half an hour, although again some episodes tend to be a little longer than that. And it is a show which covers hard science, weird shit and surreality. What's surreality, I wonder? Well, who should we ask this week? Let's go through the round window. Surreality is what happens when, for some peculiar, inexplicable part of artistic hubris, somebody brings back the Lord Protector of England to explain what surreality is 350 years after he died, was buried, and then was exhumed, only to be post-mortemly executed again for crimes against the monarchy. Bah! And now we've got all that stuff out of the way, I'd like to introduce you to an old friend of mine, Jackie Tonks, who's going to tell us all about her Bigfoot experiences. How many times, Jackie, have you been to America looking for Bigfoot?
Oh, I've been on two long camps, and I've been another two times to the conference, but I also went out. No, sorry, 3 times to the Sasquatch Summit, and I went out Bigfooting on one of the nights then as well. So, but the times I'm camping, I think the one time was about 6 days, and the other day was about 10 days, I think, from what I remember correctly. So, yeah, so out quite a long time. I think you have to do that really, so you actually do see something. I know some Americans get very frustrated because they don't get much holiday and they'll just shoot for a weekend and not see anything. But I think you've got to be there usually a lot longer. But I've been pretty lucky. I have experienced things just within a couple of hours. So,
How many times have you actually seen them?
I've seen 2 of them in front of a car about 15, 20 feet away in broad daylight. That was in about 2014, I think that was. They were clear as a bell right in front of the car. And another time I've had an encounter with something behind a very thick over growth of trees coming up, and I'm pretty sure that was a Bigfoot. It was, the grunts were sort of coming from about 7.5 feet tall, and it was, the ground was flat. There wasn't any slope, and it was chucking stuff. So it was a prime Bigfoot area as well. So I'm pretty sure that was, I don't think it was a human. The power it was throwing stuff with, I don't think a human could do that.
And of course, you were with some CFZ associated people when they took that very strange photograph, weren't you?
I was with well, I think I was the only person from the CFZ actually. Was Tom Cantrell. Yeah, you're talking about the first time, yeah. Dave Archer and Adam Davis, yeah. That was and Tim as well from Holland, Tim DeFriel. That was the 2012 time with Laurie Simmons. That was a very strange photo. Yeah, I'm not too sure what that was, but it was Dave Archer actually crouched in the same spot, and he was about half the size of it. So
Dave Archer's
he tried to reconstruct it.
Dave Archer's not a small man, is he? Yeah, he's fair-sized bloke anyway. So
no, and it was a lot. He was in exactly the same position. So a lot of people said, "Oh, it could have been a human crash." It wasn't that clear. Night vision wasn't that high quality, but it was very strange. And we did find what looked very much like Bigfoot footprints. That looked very good ones. They definitely weren't fake. So you could actually see where the toes had sort of, as it went up a slope, where the toes curled up to get a better grip. So that was, and I also when we found those footprints, that was up in the North Cascades by Marble Creek, by Marble Mount. That was, I sort of jumped off a log to try to get the depth of those footprints, and I was nowhere near, and I was jumping off a log. So whatever it was pretty heavy that made them. Some people will get, sort of things and stamp in the footprint, but you wouldn't have got that depth. And it definitely looked like, it was a real foot that was alive rather than, that it was something that was alive. It wasn't like with the toes trying to get grip. You could see where they'd sort of done that. So yeah, that was quite convincing. And that was probably about 10 miles from where we were camped. And also when we were at the Marble Creek site, we also heard on the last day when I was packing away, we also had sometimes like sounded like rocks being chucked into the water near us. And on the last day, I heard a howl, which I'm pretty sure was a Bigfoot, that echoed down the valley just as we were packing up. So I definitely think there was something there. There was also the strange thing with a tree. I mean, some people are saying that's an embedded tree, embedded branches, and it makes a funny knocking sound when the wind hits, and you'd knock on this tree, then you'd get this sort of knocking sound. And there's been a lot of controversy and people been falling out on this. I know Brian Sykes was showing the same tree, and the ranger said to him, "Oh, that's an embedded branch." But it was weird because we were also getting these grunt howl type things as we knocked on the tree that, they could have been the tree, but they didn't sound, they sounded like gorilla-like to me, to be quite frank. So that was quite a strange experience that sort of caused a lot of people falling out about what it is or isn't. But that was quite a strange one, that one. And then Tom Cantrell, who I met there, invited me out. And about a year and a half later, I went out with him, and that was Northern California, just outside Orleans. And then we didn't realize at the time we were about 2.5 miles from Bluff Creek, where the patty shop was taken.
Wow.
And that's where we saw the two like run across the road, a big logging road. And luckily it was 24 in the afternoon, so it's still really light. And the only reason we saw them was because they made a mistake. They basically ran from a distance. And at that distance, initially, I just thought they were, there's a lot of drug growing around there. People grow marijuana between the trees, and you have to watch yourself there. There'd actually been a serial killer as well the year before, so it was a bit disconcerting. Luckily, she'd been put away. So you did have to watch yourself around there. So initially, I saw these two big bloke-looking things that almost looked like two guys in an all-in-one, one of those, dark-coloured, those paper-type material overalls you get mechanics wear.
Yeah.
Will look like them with the hood up, but they were running barefoot, and initially that's what I thought I was seeing, but they looked like to have big hunched shoulders, and I thought they were perhaps carrying a rucksack under these overalls. That was my initial thinking, but they were really hunched over, and I thought, they're running really weirdly as well, but I thought, perhaps the stones are hurting their feet, and I said to my friend, "Oh, what are those idiots doing? They must be killing their feet." And then they ran into what they thought were trees, but they were burnt out trees. They'd literally been forest fire on the right hand side and literally burnt out about 30 miles of trees. And they must have panicked and suddenly realized and came right in front of us, and we had to slam on the brakes. And then I got a really clear look at them, and but my brain was still going, that. You're not seeing this. It's like seeing a unicorn in the middle of the road. Your brain is still trying to convince you they're men. So for days, I kept going into shock, and then going, "Oh, they were just really ugly men." And I knew they weren't, because I know what I'd seen. And they were like, the eyes were like, it was a domed head like a gorilla, and the eyes were a lot bigger than a human and all dark, couldn't see any whites. The nose was sort of quite a squashed nose, but it was a proper nose. And they got quite a long mouth, quite a long jaw, and apart from the face, a bit on the hands, and they were mostly hair colored, but it was like hair rather than fur. It was like hair all over, and it almost looked like like texture of sort of fiberglass, really, when it's when you get those fillers for cars. It looked almost like that, sort of. But they were like a dark grey black colour, but I think they were probably very dark, but covered in dust, because there was dust everywhere, so that would have affected their colour. But and there was one that my friend said was an older male, because he's seen them a lot before, Tom Cantrell, but the other one he said was younger male. But and I said they were 6.5 and 7 foot, and he's ex-forces and a logger. He's probably got a better judgment of size than I have, because of those jobs. So he said they were 7 and 7.5 foot, and they could well have been, but they were pretty. The shoulders on them were about 3.5 foot across, so they're massive shoulders, which is why initially from a distance I thought these guys got a rucksack across their backs, which didn't make sense. And when I saw them closer, but as I said, your brain sort of it starts messing with you. Kept saying, "Oh, the men, come on, the men. They just got a weird outfit on," and that you'd be a bit of you saying, "No, it's not." And then on the third day, I suddenly went into shock, and I couldn't stop shaking. And I said, "I saw Bigfoot, didn't I?" And Tom said, "I told you you had," But your brain for days is really messing with your head because it can't believe what you've seen. So your brain keeps trying to convince yourself you haven't seen something else, but you know what you've seen. And then I started like perceiving it clearly what I'd seen. And yeah, it's sort of quite, yeah, when it went into shock really for about a couple of hours, all shaky, and suddenly realised, I've seen Bigfoot, so, or rather
That's
two.
fantastic.
Yeah, and they definitely weren't people. I mean, the speed, the leaps they were doing, the steps were massive, and they were obviously a human couldn't go barefoot on that. It was all asphalt, sort of gravelly type stuff. You just rip yourself apart. And then the spot they'd gone, we carried on driving because for Tom who was driving, and there was Arla the back as well. They'd seen them before. It was nothing to them. They'd seen loads of them before, so it was just they were just happy for me. Whereas, because I was in shock, I did say, "Can we stop the car? Can we go and have a look?" And also, my brain was thinking perhaps they were drunk people. I still hadn't, my brain hadn't really fully perceive it. And then a couple of days later, we were going along that spot, and I said, "Can we stop and have a look where we were? I'm going to look for footprints." And so I just literally went to walk over the edge where they'd gone, and they'd run down it like gazelles. There was another thing, a human. And I didn't realise, I knew it was steep, but I didn't realise it was almost sheer. It was literally like that. And there's no way a human could have run down that without breaking their neck. I mean, I nearly had to throw myself back because I nearly went, whoa, there's no way I was going to look for footprints over there. It was almost like a cliff, and they'd just run down it like gazelles of nothing.
When you see them, and in your other experience, we'll get onto in a minute, do you have any physical changes to yourself? Do you feel anything your body is reacting to these things? I'm trying not to ask.
Oh, you mean infrasound or?
Sorry?
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I didn't know because I was in the car the first time, so there wouldn't have been any effect. The second time there was the one because we had the one also that was after one of the Sasquatch summits. That would have been would that been 2017, I think, 2016, 2017. Went just outside where the Sasquatch summit is in all Ocean Shores, and we asked Johnny, who runs the summit, have there been any recent sightings? So we have solid activity in this particular spot about 2.5 weeks. So we went, me and Brooklyn. Brooklyn helps film the summit. We went down to see whether we could get anything, and we parked the car and we walked down this little sort of logging road, and we were sort of hitting trees with sticks, and he could do the howl. I'm very good on the whoop. No sound they make. And we suddenly could hear this rustling, and I thought it was just like a raccoon or something. It didn't sound that loud. And then I got my ear flaps down, so I didn't hear it, but he got his ears covered, and he heard this like this, and I said, "What are you hearing?" He said, "Oh," he's like backing away. So could it be a bear, And then suddenly a little pine cone got thrown. And initially I just thought it's come out of a tree, but it was quite well aimed, landed at my feet. So I thought that's a bit weird. And then we knew there was definitely something because we had a little stone literally flew that far away from my face, literally, probably about 5 inches from my face. And I thought, oh, whatever it is, there's got hands or something, chucking stuff. So I was scared, but Brooklyn starts swinging the torch around because he thought somebody was perhaps up a deer hide thing, or somebody was hiding, playing a joke. So he's going, "Stop messing with us, who's there?" He couldn't. I think he knew, but again, like when I first the Bigfoot, you can't cope. Your brain can't cope with it. You think, oh, it's got a human, you know. And then he made the mistake of swimming, and he sucked around and he pulled his machete out. It got on his belt, and it did not like that. And then suddenly there was something about this size got thrown, half the size of a breeze block with foaming massive force, and it actually went into the ground and made like a little hole, and it was not freezing, but the ground was relatively hard. It was end of November, and it hit basically a little bit of puddle that was left, and it went all up my leg. And then I thought, oh my god! And that was literally landed about 2 feet from us, 2.5 feet. And I thought, whoa! And we were just out of there because we thought, oh my goodness, if that hit us, it would have broken a leg, or if it kill you if it hit your skull. And it just scared us. And I know people say, oh, you got to be brave, and oh, you got to stand your ground and try to get a photo, but you don't. When something does that, you get out of there. You're in survival mode. I mean, it was pretty terrifying. This thing was about 5 feet away. It was literally right behind, this bush.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page, and check out our Patreon.
And as the ghost of Joe Strummer, who's an ever more regular visitor to my little studio, says, don't forget to ring the notification bell, otherwise you'll miss the new episodes. And that would be an awful pity, wouldn't it?
These might look like ordinary, everyday people, but they're not. Let's take a closer look. I'm filling my tomato harness with talcum powder on the moon. Back seats for keep a welcome in the hillside. Cherry ripe, cherry ripe. I live inside of a crab with Rip Van Winkle and the Patty Cake Man. Yes, they were all wazzocks. You can tell wazzocks by their general waz-tardedness. So remember, think once, think twice, think wazzock.
That was a public information film.
Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name's John Downs. I'm the director of an organisation called the Centre for Fortean Zoology, which is the largest mystery animal research group in the English-speaking world, and we like to think the best. We've been going now for over 30 years, and in those 3 decades we have sometimes carried out campaigns to try to raise money for equipment or for expedition expenses. But one thing we never do is to raise money for ourselves, because money is nowhere near as important as the search for expanding the boundaries of human knowledge, which is, at the risk of sounding horribly self-important, what this organisation is all about. However, we are a family in a very real sense, and there have been times over the years that we have made appeals to raise money for members of the said family who are down on their luck. And this time I want to tell you about my friend Lars Thomas. He was one of the earliest members of the Centre for Fortean Zoology back when, in 1994, we started publishing our magazine, Animals and Men. And I have known him therefore for 30 years this year, which seems to be a remarkable length of time. He has recently become very ill, and he's in a hospital, partially paralysed are not able to work or indeed do anything very much. And so Richard Freeman phoned me the other night and suggested that we do a crowdfunding exercise to try and raise some money for him while he is in such a dire straits. And so I had a word with Miss Guinevere, and she went and set it all up. And you can read all about the appeal here at this link. What I would like to say, ladies and gentlemen, is that Lars is a very nice, sweet and kind man who's been very kind and generous to all of us over the years, and it's about time, I think, that the CFZ paid something back. Please dig deep in your pockets and do whatever you can to support this very worthwhile appeal. And that's about it for this episode. Lilith and I would like to thank everybody but for whom the show wouldn't have been made, particularly my guest this week, Jackie Tonks, and also guest appearances by V. McCrinnan and Richard Freeman. I also want to say a big thank you to my producer, Louis, who is currently gallivanting around the southern states of America, pretending that he's in Gone with the Wind. And I'd also like to say a big thank you to two other people. My friend, colleague and Deputy Director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, Graham Inglis, who is also my carer, because for those of you who don't know, I'm in a wheelchair half the time, and Graham has to get me up, put me to bed, and drive me to and from the hospital, which is a more and more frequent occurrence these days. Thanks, mate. I not only couldn't do this show without you, I couldn't live my life without you. And I want to say an equally big thank you to Gwyn Palmer. She is the Assistant Director of the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and she'll be taking it over together with Louis Rosio when I die or become incapacitated or furtherly unfit to be able to do what I'm doing at the moment. Thank you, darling. She does so much behind the scenes you really, really wouldn't believe it. Without her and without Graham, there wouldn't be a CFZ. So thank you very much, both of you. I'm going to be back on Wednesday. What am I talking about on Wednesday? Well, I think that we're talking about the giant tortoises found dead in a forest near Exeter when we sent Gwyn and Richard Freeman out to find them. But I may be wrong, because I often am. Are you there, Mr. McCrinnan? Mr. McCrinnan? Because if you're there next Saturday when we bring you the second half of our interview with the lovely Jackie Tonks, you there, McCrinnan? Because I'm going to be there. I'm going to be doing the live chat. I'm going to be doing all the other stuff that I do. And if you're there, Mr. McCrinnan, I'll be seeing you